Good morning and welcome to GM Tips. Geez, I think that's the clearest this screen has ever looked. That's what happens when you got a lot of light in the room. So you get to see me, facial imperfections and face hair and all. No, I'm just kidding. You got to have a little fun with things. I think one of the things too, as we do podcasts and stuff, I know there are two different levels. There's what I call the professional grade, and God bless them, I love them. Guys like Steele Empire and oh God, I could go through a litany of them. Basement Heroes, some of the others who really take the sound and the sphere that they do the casting in a very serious level with their mics. Even the Gamers Table guys do, and I really appreciate that. There's a great quality there. Then there's the home guys like me. I'm not too worried about quality overall, as opposed to the topic. Quality helps. And as you can see, I'm using just a simple Logitech camera to do this. But, sorry, I have something in my teeth. But see, I don't even worry about, do I impress you or not? Either you're going to find value in my stuff or you won't. You find humor in me or not. Believe me, everybody finds humor in me most days. Just because I'm a humorous individual most days. What was it the other night? Chaotic, one of my buddies on Twitter, and I give you a shout out there, Chaotic, huh? That's kind of funny. She was dying laughing along with Allie, TinyDM. The two of them just loved hearing the laughter. That my fiance decided she would tape the Angry Birds Fountain of Wisdom moment. Oh Lord! And it was the Fountain of Wiz. And I just couldn't stop laughing. I can't. And I'm sorry, when something's funny, you're going to hear belly rolls out of me. It's just what it is. So even if the topic on here, if something really cracks me as humorous, you're going to see me just die laughing. It's just the way I am, the way I'm wired. But enough said. Kind of a lead on into the GM tips. By the way, if you haven't watched a lot of these people, let me give some shout outs here, because I think there's some really good podcasters that are out there that can help with gaming, and I think there's some really good people that are on Facebook that you can add as well. One of those people I want to give a big shout out to is Peter Munoz. Peter Munoz, he's both on Twitter and on Facebook. Tremendous guy. A lot of things he does for both Pathfinder and 5e. He posts up a lot of NPC ideas. He gets people really invigorated with those things. He does a lot on his casts, and I really appreciate some of the material he does. He really gives a lot of great reviews. He did one on recently on the Griffinport setting for Pathfinder. And he's done a lot. He is kind of, I think, a weekly podcast, I believe. I don't want to throw it away on you, Simon. That way you can do this. But, he does reviews of things like the slaughter of Splitterfang Gorge. And he will do a lot of other reviews of material. And I really appreciate that. He does a lot for the community, and he's a tremendous guy, a lot of fun to watch and listen to. Now, another one that's really great is Alice Iguanas. And Alex really does a lot when it comes to not only authoring material, but really just reviewing material that's out there. He picks topics that he can fill the holes in, that both Pathfinder and some other systems do, and he'll really come up with some great affordable third-party material that's in PDF format. Some of the things that hit me the most is he did some things on the two different races in Pathfinder that didn't get a lot of love, and look up his stuff. Everyman Gaming is his group that he publishes with, and so he brings in a lot of authors, great work. He's worked on one for Pact Magic, which is going to be really, really cool for Pathfinder. But you can also use it in 5e as well. So there's some great things you can look at there. Now, on the podcast front, I want to give some tremendous shout-outs to our podcasters. I think they don't get a lot of love sometimes, and so I want to make sure that all these people are getting the kind of love and following that needs to be there. I want to give a shout out to Daquine Gaming Army, which is DAQUINE GAME ARMY. He does a great job of going through and does a lot of live YouTube stuff. So check out some of his gaming stuff that he does up there. He does a lot of online RPGs as well as offline paper RPGs. But most of the stuff he's doing online is the more Xbox version and PC game version. So make sure you check them out. The Angry GM. I'm doing this for Allie. I like Angry. Angry, I think, gets a little annoyed at me because my sarcasm. I don't think he's quite gotten my sarcasm yet, and that's okay. I'm all right with it. I'm sarcastic to the core sometimes with people that way, and he writes a little more vitriol laced stuff because he's not afraid to really call things out when it's really done poorly. But at the same time, he does some really, really strong reviews of how things should be and some ways to really correct and make gaming better. So be sure and check out his stuff. He does a lot of that daily on it's the Angry GM, and he is on Twitter. And then the TinyDM the TinyDM is his biggest supporter and fan, and also biggest sarcastic wit to his stuff as well. So check out some of her stuff. She's funny as heck. Chaotic Anarchy was with the Steele Empire, so make sure to check out this latest episode of them. She does some voice work on there, and I think knowing that group, it's going to be a lot of mirthful fun. You got to go in and listen to them because they have a lot of fun with the voices and the acting there. And I don't know if they really get anywhere purpose-wise at the end of the day. You guys make small progress. But at the same time, it's just fun and funny, and it's more of a lighthearted take on things. So make sure that you get the time to really watch. Well, I won't say watch because you can't watch podcasts. Listen to them. Sorry, guys. After Six Podcast, make sure that you do that. After Six Podcast is also on Twitter. Make sure you're listening to After Six's stuff. Basement Heroes always get some love from me, so I always love those guys. They did me a solid. They got me a one of my dice towers up there. My gray dice towers is from them, and did a giveaway. Tremendous group. Love supporting them and their work. And there's so many more, but I just want to take a few minutes to give some shout outs to you guys. The other one that's a lot of fun, and these guys are on Twitch. Make sure you give them a ton of love and watch their stuff, is Encounter Roleplay. And great bunch of people. Encounters is a multitude of different shows that goes on there and great groups. And they have a lot of different genres of RPGs from 5e to Pathfinder to Deadlands to other different genres. So make sure you're watching that. Noof Gaming. Make sure you go see Noofer. Noofer puts a lot up on YouTube with his sessions, and he has a great group. Insightful, knowledgeable people. If you want to sit down and watch a group that really knows a lot about just the trivial stuff in life, these guys are greatness. I mean, seriously, when I'm watching them do Call of Cthulhu, they will go over a topic and they will attack that topic, and they really know what they're talking about. And I learn a lot of things just watching Noof, and I get a lot of entertainment out of their podcasts. One more on Twitch that I want to make sure you go see is Baphomet. Baphomet has her stuff on, and usually it's weekly, but she's taking a little bit of break time, I think, in between now. But make sure you catch her stuff. Baph does some funny things with her and her friends when they're gaming. So keep that in mind. And on to our topic of the day after all these promos. I know, right? No, I'm not getting paid by any of these guys. Just like their stuff. So I want to talk today a little bit about undead campaigns. And what I mean is not characters running necessarily undead. But if you want to design a campaign that's based around an undead baddie or an undead country, how do you write a really effective system of campaign around undead? Because everybody, I think, looks at undead as hack slash, and they're really not. If you understand the whole thing about undeath and what's going on, you really just you make it more than a hack slash system. That's what I want to talk about today. I run a really successfully fun one with one of the ones Paizo did with the Carrying Crown. I loved it because it had not only an undead baddie at the end, but it had a lot of other things twisted around it, and cults and other things. I think number one, you gotta look at when you're writing an undead campaign. Do I know the backgrounds and the histories of the undead monsters? Really get to know your topics. One of the ones, if you do Pathfinder now, D&D may have some other stuff 5e coming out. I hope they do. And I'm going to challenge you guys at Wizards. Get some stuff out on Undead. Strahd was great. The Return of Strahd, I think that is their most horror-esque campaign topic that I've ever seen with D&D. But there's so much more they can do than Strahd. Strahd's a vampire. It's great. It brings up some stuff, and you have a vampire that's running everything. But all your undead big baddies don't have to be vampires. I think you wear out a topic with that sometimes. They are one choice. I'm going to show you a bunch of other ones in the Undead Revisited. Love, love, love this material. It was written by Todd Stewart, Brandon Hodge, and Steve Kenson, who are three of the, there's Paizo authors and there's third-party authors that'll do their stuff, so it's a mix of all the above. And they do a tremendous job of going through some of the more interesting undead, from the Bodaks to the Nightshades, Devourers, Raveners, which is over here. Your Grave Knight. Love, love, love the Grave Knight. Shadows, Liches, pretty well known. Spectral Undead. The Morgs and the Whites. And I think as we look at these, any of these right here can be a boss undead. Let me just say that right here, right now. And so little is known of these creatures, like a Bodak. Did you know that Bodaks have a gaze? This is the scary part. Now, a lot of people don't get to know these undead, and this is why it's important. I'm going to pick a couple out of here to show you how boss some of these can be to write a campaign around. So, it says Bodak Apocalypse. Love this. Because their ability to propagate through their undead gaze attack, Bodaks can spread through an area for a frightfully short period of time. GMs could set up a total scenario where the local people speak of people being turned to undead at an alarming rate, with those attacked by the creature turning to undead as well. Most players would immediately presume the town or area was under assault by zombies. You would, wouldn't you? Zombie plague. Or some other relatively weak undead. This is the perfect setup to fool adventurers into thinking they can walk into an area and clean up this vile mess easily. Bodaks, how they're created, and this is what they say. The world is filled with evil and unspeakable things. Dark clerics pray to vile gods. Wizards to seek unbridled power and pacts with their foul demons. All of which allowing sinister things to take root among the living. Yet evil is not merely a supernatural phenomenon. Okay? And this comes from here. The true horror of a Bodak. The transformation into a Bodak is physically painful as it is spiritually damning. All the images of horror are replayed over and over again in the victim's mind. His body racked with pain, causing him to thrash about in debilitating seizures. The victim's eyelids clamped shut in a nearly unbreakable bond. Nothing shortly prying them open or cutting the eyelids apart will force them open. Those who witnessed the transformation and lived to tell of it say the victim's eyes seem to migrate around their face, growing and shrinking in size, as if trying to escape from the person's head. Shortly thereafter, the rest of the body undergoes a change as well, the limbs elongating and hair falling out, the skin drying out on the bones, giving the victim an emaciated, androgynous frame. And the eyes become black pits of horror. You want to talk about a nightmare undead? That is a friggin' nightmare undead. And people don't get how dangerous a Bodak is. They just play it out without understanding the true power of a Bodak. They are nasty and things. They give the ecology, the history of them. And then here's one of the fearsome Bodaks. And you can see what I mean by the eyes. And he's carrying two eyeballs on either side. He's the taker of eyes. And you want to talk about a nightmare thing. And that's why I say knowing you're undead. Get to know them. Pick out your books. If it's a monster manual, sit down and pore over them. Go over the articles of them. Go other game systems articles on the creatures, and look at how horrific they really are, and try to capture that in your descriptions. I did that the other day. My players came across a Grave Knight. Want to see a Grave Knight? They're an interesting bunch. Grave Knights are not something to be taken lightly. Okay? They are a permanent desecrated temple around their armor. Okay? So this is the permanent desecration they walk with. So I got a party with a war priest to an imperial lord, which are good, usually. I have a cleric of Sarenrae. I have a paladin of Caden Kaleen, all in this party. The party's in the shop. It's a weapon shop. They're touring around trying to quietly get the weapons out because they found some magical weapons. They know this city is a city of ghosts and undead, so they're trying to do it quietly. Well, of course, this particular creature, when he was living, had a wizard put symbols of pain, and then symbols of, symbol of insanity, and then a symbol of stun on his weapon cases. And the party, unfortunately, traps the symbol of stun on behind the shopkeeper's thing. There's a little secret alcove where he keeps some of his really good stuff. And it went boom, and it shattered the windows, knocked the party down. All the spellcasters that are in there, save the clerics that are outside, are down. The rogues are down. The investigator is down. They're all stunned. Every single one of them failed their saving throw, including the NPC Pixie Remley. So they're all laying on the ground, thrashing around. The curtain blows off, and behind it is standing a dwarf Grave Knight. He doesn't have his helmet on, but he's standing there with his green eyes staring at them. He looks almost like a Duergar with his skin color. So people are going, Duergar? And he's not. And the party tried to examine him. And they're doing their little knowledge checks. And one of the things they found out from their knowledge check is that he's got a permanent desecrate, like a desecrated temple of evil, that spans out him 30 feet. Well, it negates any good effects and healing and everything else of the party. It totally takes the holies out of their holiness. So the paladin's trying to negotiate. Funny thing, I love how this guy's running his paladin, by the way. He's really more negotiation to the greater good. And then, of course, the war priest goes into when he tells him he wants them to convert to Zamindor. Well, then they all freak out. And the war priest's like, this ain't happening. And he starts drawing his weapon. Well, so much for letting the party get back up from being stunned. Now it's on. And see, the horror, and the way I presented him, as I said, you see this dwarf. He's in this really nasty-looking half-plate armor. And he gives off an aura of just corruption. His skin is a gray, sallow color, and his eyes gleam with just a wicked green light. This is the kind of thing that really brings the horror aspect. And what I do for a lot of these players is I make them roll sanity checks, especially if things don't make sense to them. Don't be afraid to use the heroes or the horror adventures sanity rules, or to incorporate Call of Cthulhu sanity rules into your D&D game. Because not everything the player is going to see they're going to recognize, and some of them are pretty horrific. Let's see if they got, yes, the Devourer. That was one of the other things they faced. You want to see a nasty-looking piece of work? Let's take a look at the Devourer. This is a Devourer. This is what was starting to happen to the War Priest. You can see in the rib cage little lights. Those are souls that he eats and takes into his rib cage. They are like a demonic soul eater. Do yourself a favor and do this creature justice. Get to know it. Devourers are nasty. This one's a Devourer Oracle 14. The Devourer I had go against them was just a standard. These creatures are the creatures of nightmares. And they're not easy to defeat. You have to really, really pound into them. Because the Devourer's ecology, let me read some things for you. The ecology of the Devourer. Devourer's origins are shrouded in mystery. While spellcasters may create them through create greater undead spells, exactly what occurs during these rituals is unclear. And it's possible that Devourers are more called into being than physically created. Certainly, it's more than just a simple matter of animating a corpse. Unlike many other forms of undead, Devourers do not form spontaneously, nor do they breed or spawn. Horrific nightmares. One thing I'd say, when you pick your boss undead, really get to know it. Get to know its lieutenants around it. And create an aura of just amazement for your characters. You don't want them to just come up and say, oh, yay, it's a skeleton warrior. It's this, it's that, it's the other. So... but you really want to do that. Sorry. Just figuring out what Mini GM was doing over there. She's making some voice things. She's being silly. But you got to understand that there are going to be creatures that you really want to pull the dread around. The party is scared. My party is scared to be in this city now. And they're holy warriors and things. Look, very little scares them, but they're starting to get the idea that, man, we are outgunned. They're incorporeal undead. Now, realize this about incorporeal undead. Depending, and again, I haven't seen the D&D rules, but I figure they're pretty similar to the 5e. Incorporeal undead, so ghosts, wraiths, specters, alyps, other creatures that are translucent creatures, different haunts. Oh Lord, what are they called? Poltergeists. Even though you hit them, you can only hit them with magic weapons. Number one. Number two, when you hit them with magic weapons, you only do half damage. Unless you have ghost touch, you cannot do full damage to them. There are a couple things. There's two other things that are like that allow you to fully damage them. But keep in mind that these guys are hard to hit and kill. And so it's frightening when the party hits them and doesn't do as much damage. So how did I do it? You got to create a sense of dread when you're doing these things. And what I did for my party, for the specters that were coming out. So what happens? The party goes in. They knock on the door. Yeah. The rogue gets him through the front door. He's trying to sneak in. The war priest does his usual thing of coming in, and he knocks on the door where he knows the most powerful undead is because of his paranoia. He's playing out his paranoia that he came back with. Of course, that alerts everything. It's like ringing a dinger bell. So instead of allowing the rogue to open the door to the kitchen where the mother and daughter specters are, these spectral hands start coming through the wall. Freaks the crap out of the rogue. Max is like, I'm stabbing at them. And the whole thing of it coming through the wall that way messes with his sanity. Because, again, seeing the whole creature in front of you, maybe not as scary. But how it comes through a wall, now that's freaking frightening. And that's weird. And you don't think of it that way. So play up these things. Play on the sanity factor. Now, how is sanity calculated in the new horror adventures? Take intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Put them together. That's your sanity score. Your sanity threshold is your highest of those three ability scores. So if you have an 18 wisdom, if you have an 18 intelligence, if you have a 16 charisma, that would be your threshold. So that's how many points you can take of sanity damage in a short period of time, like a combat session. And then you start getting bad effects like insanities and things like that from your sanity threshold. Beautiful thing to play and damage. And look, the great thing about sanity thresholds is even if they save and make it, they still take damage. It's not a save and take no damage to your sanity. It's take less damage. So it's always messing with their psyche. And that's the way it should be in these kind of things. This is unnatural. This is not a place. Look, finding one ghost in a dungeon is one thing. A whole city of them, and you don't know how they were created, and some dark god was involved. That just messes the whole psyche. So when you're creating a horror campaign, make sure you put in the elements that really freak your players and characters out. You want to have that. You want to have justification for the freak out factor, because there's going to be think about horror movies. It's a freak out factor, and that's what you want. You want that freak out factor playing against your heroes to really mess with their minds. So a lot of descriptive things of what's going on, weird ways that the creatures utilize their abilities to do some weird things that really freak with your players. Don't be predictable. Don't just walk in and say they're going to touch you. They're trying to do some things. Even let them talk to your players. Have them have a calm conversation, and all of a sudden lose it. And that'll freak your characters out. These are the kind of elements you can use to really get into the psyche of your characters. So when you do a horror campaign, the whole setting of it, the setting of the moment, the setting of the undead that comes through, the how you play them is really a factor that really can be a great factor, or one of those, you let me down. So keep that in mind. Who controls the undead? The real bad guy. Sometimes it's better not to be so straightforward and just say, hey, the lich is at the back of all this. Players come to expect that. What about dark elements? Maybe there was a deity, a lost home, something that was not good, that somebody good found that just warped their soul. These are the kind of things in the elements. As you create the master baddie, veil that baddie in so many layers that it's not easy for your players to see who the real bad guy is, or bad woman. Really hide this under layer after layer after layer, and let them, like an onion, peel back one layer at the time to get to the real heart of who's causing it. Like, for instance, they're well done in Carrying Crown, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear this, don't listen. Spoiler alert. I'm going to make it real clear. Spoiler alert. Okay, enough? So for the Carrying Crown, there's a cult devoted to an undead goddess, but you don't know that in the beginning. A good friend of the parties, a professor, dies mysteriously, and his funeral brings them to this small town in Ustalav. Ustalav's kind of a Barovia, Romania, Transylvania, Yugoslavia, Hungary, and Eastern Europe all mashed together. Okay? So it's got a lot of different elements to it, including even like an Eastern Germany or an Old Germany area. So there's all these elements that are wrapped in there. But they're going to this area called Tam Ravenna, or in the Tam Ravenna area, the small town, and Ravensgrow. And Ravensgrow has a prison that burned, and the inmates died mysteriously along with the warden. And there's all these real hauntings and different things that go on. And the neat thing about hauntings, and they give you a description of how to play them, the party necessarily can't damage them with weapons. These are recurrences that come back, or severe haunts that come back and replay themselves. And it messes with the character's psyche. And that's the cool part. When you wrap it in layers, don't ever make everything monsters. Make it haunts and different replays and events and things that go on. I've watched some people play some of the haunted aspects in different modules. And when it's played right, the characters are freaked out. They're running 6 directions. And they don't know what to do, and they don't know. And the unknown drives them nuttier than a fruitcake. Because why are they doing this? Why are they collecting these things? What's going on here? Is it a ritual? What kind of ritual? I don't know of any rituals that do this. What are they trying to achieve? where is this going? See where I'm going with this? This is the way you layer it, with lots of plots and subplots. Don't make it too hard, but just tie everything to a major theme, but do it in such a way that it's disjointed, that it doesn't make sense until you have the other pieces of the puzzle. And this will really create an epic campaign where people are trying to figure it out. They're running all directions to try to figure out what in the heck is going on. They have a great book that's in Pathfinder that talks about dealing with the undead. It's the Undead Manual. That's basically there. And I'm not remembering the name of it, but it has different things that undead slayers can use, different archetypes. Even in D&D, prepare some archetypes that are like undead slayers or undead exorcists or undead things that the players can take that leads them that way. Have some churches that are devoted against the undead, that are trying to deal with it, and that become allies to the party. Secret organizations and societies that help and hinder the party. These are all part of a great horror campaign. And a horror campaign doesn't always have to be undead, but I'm picking the undead theme. You can do, reanimated monsters. You can do werewolves. You can put other things, Cthulhu and dark deities. There's all kinds of things you can bring into them. But if you do them right, they will really build a mystique. And do the voices. What do you think this will bring you? Why are you so concerned with this? What concerns you so much that you come to our village this way? Oh, sir, I do not understand why you do this. But the Baba will help you. She will. Let me take your fortune and harrow for you with these harrow cards to see what I can do. I do not understand why you are here. What do you think you're doing in our town? I am the captain of the guard. I have this under control. Don't you understand this? Why? Why do you think I don't? See, you've got to go in. You've got to create. You've got to give them the shaken feeling that these people would have, the malaise that comes over them, the hopelessness. Like a village with the morgues, where they are the Bodaks. The village is panicked. People are becoming undead at an alarming rate, and any time they look into the eyes of this creature, it seems to affect them. People have watched the transformations, and it's horrific. And then those who happen to survive it, most were turned watching it. See? Now there's a horror all onto itself. And you think about this, this takes it to another level. I love the one picture that I got from Pinterest. And there's these skeletons, and there's this warrior ready for these regular skeletons. And all of a sudden, out of the hillside, out of a huge grave, comes the skeleton of a giant. Now, how horrifying is that? Okay, a regular skeleton, no problem. I can take a couple rounds, beat the tar out of it. That? Holy crap on a cracker. I'm going to do half damage with an edged weapon? This ain't good. So now the party's panicking. Put in different elements. If you're going to do skeletons, do the modifications to take them up there. Make them unique and advanced. And when you present them, don't present them as just a skeleton with glowing eyes or glowing hands. Say this creature rises from the ground, a glow around it of unholy light. And as it rises and looks at you in hate, it grabs the nearest weapon that is rusted, ready to do battle with the party. See the difference? And this, when I say you put all these elements together and these bad guys, make the key baddie of whatever area of the onion you're going into epic every time. Each one is epic, leading to the real mastermind behind it. Because why? A mastermind would surround himself with strong creatures. Keep that in mind. So that's some things there. Now, what kind of undead are there? There are tons. I know with the Pathfinder books I have, I love some of the new stuff they come up with. And I'm going to pick a few here for you. I'm going to show you a little bit of things that come in that are not your normal things. The Alep. Why is the Alep such a bad thing? Well, because its madness is what does things. And when it babbles, it drains charisma. Or, excuse me. When it babbles, here we go. An Alep constantly mutters to itself, creating a hypnotic effect. All sane creatures within 60 feet of the Alep must succeed a DC 15 save or be fascinated for 2d4 rounds. So they can do nothing. They're in a fascinate mode for those. Think about how horrific that is when you are going against something of that nature. A Buddha. Oh, love the Buddhas. Oh, just a lovely creature. If you haven't converted that one to your 5e, do it. Or 3-5. The Buddhas. A Buddha is a ghost-like undead born of horrible death of a murderer in a natural setting. Its manifestation of rage at the injustice of its death that interrupted its important business or unsated desires. Doomed to haunt the wilderness within several miles of the site of its demise, the Buddha turns to the local fauna as its tool for vengeance. It can do a blood drain, and it has a cold iron weakness. So it's an interesting type of creature. Keep this in mind when you're doing these type of things. A cold rider, love them. Those are like out of our Game of Thrones, where they have the winter whites. That's it. The cold riders do ice walking and use implements of ice to go against the living creatures that surround them. As you see, I'm just kind of paging through and going to a couple of these. Why? Because they're important. The Grave Knight. There it is, the template and all. Utilize it. The Grave Knight is horrific. As you can see, the gray skin and the eyes. And that's what I held out to my players about the dwarf. Let's see. The Huekava. Oh, the priest that has fallen, and the god would not let them rest because they went and renounced their vows. Huekava. Attic whisperers. The little children that are in these little bones of rats and things like this and put the heads together. And they can steal the voice of the one that they go after. So a spellcaster losing their voice to where they can't even voice their spells. You see the horror that comes on here? That's why I say there are so many. If you have just the monster manual in D&D, go to the bestiaries. Look online on the SRD stuff for Paizo and Pathfinder and just convert the elements to where it matches the D&D 5e game. I'm telling you, there are so many great, just epic boss things for all levels. You want to utilize it out of different things and pull from it because I'm telling you, it's not the same old Undead campaign. It's just not a bunch of zombies, mindless zombies and skeletons marching to a drum with some whites mixed in and some wraiths. There's more to it. Put the elements of why the creature died. One of the most horrific things for my characters was coming on a haunt of a creature that was once the daughter of Baba Yaga, a great-great-granddaughter, and she doesn't know why the Baba drained her to death. But now she's angry. She's an angry spirit, an angry nightmare that comes back. And she's sane talking to the party. They're doing negotiation with her. They're learning things. The rogue's doing great. He's doing his thing. All of a sudden, insanity. She starts losing it. Babbling. Angry. Vicious. She turns from this mournful woman to this angry, vengeful spirit. This is how you run your haunts. Because then it builds up such a sense that the party's got to somehow resolve it. But there's this crazy creature now. So when you're doing these elements, number one, don't do the same old, okay? Pick something unique and pick and do the introduction and the background. Make it really horrific for your players, the drawing. Have many layers to the onions to get to the bad guys. And then convert and do things with different types of undead and play them out for what they really are. I'm telling you, I'm having so much fun doing Darathros with these guys. I wish they wouldn't have gone here, but I'm having fun with them. And so keep that in mind. As you do these things, you can make it into just such an epic thing. And put different ways that they have to get rid of the undead. Don't always make it that they kill them. Sometimes killing the undead doesn't stay dead. they come back and keep coming back. Because you have to do the consecrations, you have to do the other things. They have to go through the ritual, and it takes them learning a knowledge, and you can do a whole knowledge devoted to knowledge undead. And I'm going to be doing that more in my campaign. Some different knowledges that are going to take them there into a depth of understanding of rituals and things they have to do to put them to rest. So keep that in mind, folks. These are the elements that can really make it. Use music. Oh my gosh, use a lot of mood music for these type of things and have fun with it. Thanks, and appreciate you listening to my GM tips. Have a great day and a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.